Hello, everybody. Okay, I know I am confusing everybody. Then there are daily videos, then none for days, then 2 in 1 day, blah, blah, blah. Guys, it is a struggle. Not only are we entering a bit of a stressful time where my daughter will be going for an operation next week, but the darn load shedding schedules are playing havoc with our lives. Anyway, guys, next week will be a tough one. As you know, I live in a rural area, so there will be a lot of traveling next week, and we will likely be away from home for at least 3 days. So, videos next week may be scarce. I also have the dog and grandson in the car, so I can't even say I'll record videos on my phone. But don't worry, I'll do my best to catch up in between or as soon as we are back home safe and sound. Anyway, as some of you may have noticed, I have been trying very hard lately to keep a balance in reporting on the royal family. I'm trying to acknowledge both the good and the bad. But guys, I'm having a hard time staying balanced, and I'll tell you why. I am the first person to admit that I have made a few mistakes in the time I have been doing these videos. However, I have also said a few things in my videos for which I got bashed and which is now indeed slowly but surely coming out or manifesting in mainstream media, among the public in general, and in the words and actions of the royals themselves. The first thing I am truly struggling with is what appears to be the bandwagon jumping, virtue signaling, woke PR narrative of certain and in particular senior royals. If I did not know any better, I would have thought that Clarence House and Kensington Palace hired Sunshine Sachs as their new PR and got Meghan to write some of their speeches and newspaper articles. Now, okay, guys, don't get too upset and don't run away yet. Hear me out, please. First, let me tell you a story. And although it is a story from our little town, it is very applicable to what I am going to talk about with regards to the royals. So hang in there. In my little town, we have a large portion of the population who are out of work and thus live under the poverty line. Approximately 75% of our town's population are dependent on social grants. Of course, there are a variety of efforts to help, among which a feeding scheme for the younger children at the local school. But of course, this consists out of, say, a bowl of porridge one day, sandwiches another day, or soup in the winter. The fact remains that in some instances, that will be the only meal that child gets that day. Some of these children come from homes without electricity, hot water, or many of the things other people take for granted. It is what it is, and it is a fact. Once a year, though, there is a group who comes to the school and donate bicycles to these children. Now, as a result of this donation, 3 children that I know of had lost their lives in 2 separate accidents, which is sad in itself. But on the day these children receive these yellow bicycles, you will see these bicycles all over town. A couple of days later, you may see 1 or 2 on a good day, and those that you do see are mostly used by one of the parents or other family members of the children, and seldom the children themselves. The very next week, you will see the very same children back on the school bus or walking to school, because in many instances, the parents have sold the bicycles. Yet, year after year, these people come back and donate more bicycles. It boggles my mind. The monetary value of the bicycle could likely clothe and feed 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, if not more, of those children for the rest of the year. So, where am I going with this? Well, let's start with Prince Charles and his visit to Canada, and another article which appeared recently with regards to Harry and the Invictus Games. So let me read you part of the heading with regards to Invictus. Prince Harry reveals the next Invictus Games will be about reconciliation with Indigenous communities and held in Canada. Further down in the article, we read the event will be in partnership with Indigenous communities in the spirit of truth and reconciliation. Now, let's take a look at one of the headings pertaining to Charles and Camilla's visit. Prince Charles addresses United Kingdom's dark and difficult colonial past in Canada amid calls for an apology. Prince Charles and Camilla's royal tour will focus on reconciliation with Indigenous communities. Well, I went to the trouble to write out one of, or a portion of one of Charles's speeches for you, and it goes as follows. However, as we look to our collective future as one people sharing one planet, we must find ways to come to terms with the darker and more difficult aspects of the past, acknowledging, reconciling, and striving to do better, which is all true. Anyway, let's continue. It is a process that starts with listening. I know that our visit here this week comes at an important moment with Indigenous and non Indigenous people across Canada committing to reflect honestly and openly on the past and to forge a new relationship for the future. My wife and I can hardly be more privileged to travel part of this journey. Well, guys, here is the truth. Somewhere in Quebec, sorry, I cannot pronounce the names of some of the places, but anyway, is a huge orange billboard. This billboard tallies the potential number of unmarked graves that have been discovered so far as First Nations across Canada conduct ground penetrating radar searches at former residential school sites. The number currently stands at 6,509. To date, the Center for Truth and Reconciliation has documented 4,118 children who died at residential schools. And that, my dear friends, was in September 2021. More than 150,000 Indigenous children were forcibly taken from their families to attend residential schools. These are the acknowledged facts. And yes, I know Charles and William and Harry are not responsible for these atrocities. However, before I continue, I did learn a surprising fact while in Canada. Well, at least surprising for me, when I learned that the last residential school only closed down in 1996. It is, however, also a fact that Charles is part of a regime which allowed these atrocities to continue until 1996. Now, here are 8 key issues the Indigenous people and communities of Canada are still facing today. 1. Health issues. Inadequate housing and crowded living conditions are a contributing factor to the higher rate of respiratory problems and infectious diseases among Indigenous children. 33.65% of the Indigenous people do not have secondary or high school education, compared to 18.3% of the rest of the Canadian population. Housing issues. 44.2% of the First Nation people living on reserves live in a dwelling that is in desperate need of major repairs. Lower income levels. The average total income of Indigenous people is 75% that of non Indigenous people, which leaves a 25% gap. Higher rates of unemployment, higher rates of incarceration, higher death rates among children and youth due to unintentional injuries. And this one is the one that bothers me most. Higher rate of suicide. Among the Inuit youth, the suicide rate is one of the highest in the world, 11 times the national average. Now to my point. Just like those yellow bicycles do not solve the socio-economic problems of the poor in my community, neither will taking Invictus to an Indigenous community. Or, for that matter, Charles's words. And no amount of acknowledgement of the past will change anything. Neither will a memorial garden or a museum, although those are nice gestures and serves as a rather cruel reminder of the past. No amount of listening will change or better anything. It does not matter how many guest books Charles or anyone else actually sign. But here is an idea for Charles if he is truly listening. Charles, those speeches, those guest books, memorials, and gardens are all yellow bicycles, my friend. You earn an average of 22 million British pounds annually, or then 35 million Canadian dollars. How about dropping the virtue signaling and using half of your personal annual income and building a children's hospital in or near an Indigenous community? How about using half of your annual income and repairing some of those homes in the communities? Your income, Charles, not prancing around and using nice words to collect money from other people to spend in your name, Charles. You see, until you do that, my friend, your words are meaningless. And while you are at it, please drop the Hollywood smile you have adopted over the last 3 years. And please stop using the Hollywood lingo. We all know you are married to Camilla. You can stop saying, my wife and I. Your wife has a name. use it. Now, I know some of you guys are by now blowing smoke out of your ears. But guys, look at it like this. Millions of British pounds are leaving Britain annually via royal charities, of which Charles's trusts and foundations are making up a large, if not the largest portion. But where does that money come from? It comes from donations. Donations from the public and businesses. It comes from those who are already paying tax. How much of that money actually comes from Charles? The answer is little to none. Yet, every time either his trust or foundation makes a donation, he is hailed as a hero. I personally cannot stomach much of this anymore. A 3-day trip to Canada, and by the way, did you notice what plane he stepped off from in St. John's? Okay, so who do you think is funding a large portion of this trip? Not Charles, but the Canadian government using your tax money to do so. Now, guys, I'm not done, so just hear me out. Do I hate Charles? No. Do I hate Harry or Meghan or William or Jeff Bezos or anyone else in that elite genre? No, I don't. What I hate is the falseness, the mind games, the hypocrisy. And yes, I hate that with a passion. Here is another example. I do not care what anyone talks about. I do not care which bandwagon anyone jumps on. But if you bring it to me, but then go and do the exact opposite of what you are preaching, I do get very, very angry. And therefore, as from this Jubilee year, 2022, I shall never ever listen to any royal ever preaching about climate change, global warming, or carbon emissions ever, ever, ever again. I may, however, take a minute and listen to Elon Musk talking about the same subject. And why? Because he is using his own money to try and do something about it. I may or may not even agree with him. That is not the point. The point is that he is actually physically trying to live what he's talking about and trying to build a solution, unlike the royal family, who had now taken more long distance flights and who are still going to take more in the same year or in the rest of the year than half of my subscribers put together. So, my dears, I think all that's left for me to say is I am sick and tired of yellow bicycles. And I hope you understand the comparison and the narrative and at least have some understanding of how I feel and why I feel this way. Okay, my dears, I'm going to end the video right here and I'll be back in about an hour or two with a happy and more positive video. Take care until then. Bye.